Imagine it's 1983. A high-pitched alarm pierces the silence inside a Soviet bunker. Radar screens show a blinding flash over the Atlantic. In Moscow, phones are ringing in the middle of the night. In Washington, red lights flicker in the Situation Room. Within minutes, world leaders must decide: press the button or perish. This is how the Cold War could have turned into World War III. Before the storm, for decades after World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union stood locked in a deadly stare-down. No shots were fired between the superpowers directly, but every proxy war, every missile test, every spy mission was a move on the world's most dangerous chessboard. By the early 1980s, both sides had nuclear arsenals large enough to destroy the planet several times over. And yet, it wasn't just the weapons that were dangerous. It was the fear, the paranoia, the belief that the other side might strike first. History tells us we came close, several times. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis nearly brought the world to the brink. In 1983, a Soviet early warning system mistook sunlight, reflecting off clouds for incoming nuclear missiles. One man, Lieutenant Colonel Stanislav Petrov, decided it was a false alarm. He was right. But what if he had been wrong? Or worse, what if he had believed it was real? If Petrov had reported a confirmed nuclear launch, the Soviet chain of command might have responded instantly. Hundreds of warheads would have been fired toward NATO targets in Europe and the United States. The US would have retaliated within minutes. In less than half an hour, the skies would be filled with fire. Major cities, New York, London, Paris, Moscow, reduced to radioactive ruins. Nuclear winter would follow, plunging the planet into years of darkness and famine. In this world, civilization as we know it collapses by 1984. But maybe both sides would have hesitated, using nuclear weapons only in limited strikes. The war might have shifted into a brutal, years-long conventional conflict across Europe and Asia. Millions of soldiers would fight in a second Great War, but this time with tanks, jets, and chemical weapons far deadlier than in World War II. Global economies would crumble under the cost. Civil unrest would explode in countries far from the front lines. And while nuclear weapons might remain mostly unused, the constant threat would hang over every battlefield like a shadow. In some alternate timelines, the war could end without total annihilation, but the map of the world would look nothing like today's. Perhaps the Soviet Union would emerge as the sole superpower, ruling a world rebuilt under communist ideology. Or perhaps the United States and its allies would dominate, reshaping global politics under a harsher, more militarized order. Either way, the 21st century would be born in the ashes of a world war, and our present-day lives would be unrecognizable. The Cold War didn't turn into World War III, not because it couldn't, but because chance, caution, and sometimes pure luck kept the trigger from being pulled. It's easy to think of history as inevitable. But the truth is, the world we live in exists because of a handful of moments where someone didn't give the order. So the next time you hear about close calls and diplomatic tensions, remember, history doesn't always bend toward peace. Sometimes it balances on the edge of destruction.